Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central. Doomfist has been nerfed on the PTR in the most bizarre fashion that I've ever seen. Because it's on the PTR, there is a chance that this was a bug of some cases or just a weird interaction between some of the changes, but for the most part, Doomfist's Seismic Slam has actually been nerfed in both the distance that it covers and the damage that it does, but only in very unique situations. We have some live and PTR comparisons to show, but ultimately I just want to go through the process of me testing it, why it doesn't really make too much sense, and where I feel that this problem is coming from. So just off the basis, if you're stood still, Seismic Slamming forwards, it does the same amount of damage. That doesn't necessarily change. But the nerf comes in how much damage and how much distance you cover when you're stood on top of a ledge. This is the first test that I did on Nirvana. Stood on this, you can see where I'm aiming the reticle for both of them. It's effectively in the same spot. This is how much damage I do on the live servers. And this is how much I do on the PTR. Across a lot of these tests, there's a 15 to 20 damage difference, and you can obviously see that we're covering less distance when jumping down on targets too. But then I started doing some tests in the practice range to begin with, and I was trying to make sure that I was stood right on the edge of a ledge to see if that worked. But then what I found out is, if you're stood right on the edge of a ledge and you do it, the damage on live and PTR is exactly the same. You've seen it on screen, I am stood right at the edge of this ledge, I've got a target that both reticles are sort of aiming towards, and I'm doing the same exact damage and covering the same exact distance. I then went on to King's Row to test if it was a case of like how far the distance was. Maybe on the PTR you just couldn't reach as far in general, and so I gave that a go. But again on King's Row, if I was aiming for the furthest I could, sort of medium range, or low distance, they all landed in the same spot for live and PTR, doing the same exact damage. The information on this came from a Twitter user, Chase Martin, who sort of gave me a tip on Doomfist's change on here. So at this point I effectively thought that he was doing it wrong or just lying, but then he sent me some clips of him doing it, and then I realized that it only works if you're not stood at an edge. As I said, if you're stood on the ground, a jump forward is exactly the same, and that interaction seems to work when you're at the edge of a ledge too. But when you're stood on high ground, maybe a couple of centimeters back, for example, on these X's on the ground on Nirvana, this is where the interaction happens. And as you can see, we're doing about 15 to 20 less damage because of it. How about on a completely different ledge? Or even just the top of a flight of stairs, how does that work? I was covering less ground and doing less damage. I don't think this has to do with how much ground you can cover in general. For example, if you're trying to Seismic Slam as far away as possible, it seems that the distance of the damage is the same at max ranges, but when you're aiming at a specific area and trying to land on that, you just land short of it and do less damage because of that. Now the reason I think that this was added into the game was simply because of the jump mechanic changes. Miska went over this the other day. This boiled down to when you use the crouch jump ability, which gives you a little bit more height when you jump. Some heroes like Tracer could do it from a standstill, whereas heroes like Roadhog couldn't. So this was made to be more consistent, but it seems that that had an effect on Doomfist, and that had an effect on how Doomfist Seismic Slam works from ledges because of maybe the jump mechanics. I'm not 100% sure, but there is definitely a problem with this ability. It's a very confusing ability. I was going to wrap this up in a video that I want to do covering some of the other mechanic changes to Reaper and Roadhog, especially with their randomizing shot, but this in itself I think is really interesting. It seems that it's not intentional, but regardless, this is a nerf to Doomfist. He does less damage, he covers less ground, and I feel that this might be an option for the fact that he often is really good at getting in on targets using the Seismic Slam, getting a kill and then getting out. This might be less of a bug than a feature in Blizzard's eyes, but effectively this is a change that wasn't addressed in the patch notes, but I did want to bring people's attention to it because more often than not Doomfists are using Seismic Slam from high ground, very rarely on the ground at a horizontal level, and very rarely right at the edge of a ledge, right? So the predominant main focus of times that you'll be seismic slamming a target, you'll be on high ground at any given point. So really interesting interaction that I wanted to highlight today, but the point of this video is just to let you know that this is on the PTR, and also to let Blizzard know because they might not know themselves. But let me know what you think of this, whether you think it's an appropriate nerf or whether you feel that this should be fixed as soon as possible. But it is interesting. Do share this video around, let your friends know that this is a thing, ask what they think, and maybe Blizzard could see it too because, yeah, this is a really weird one. Thanks for watching, take care, we'll see you next time.